Hello, everyone, and welcome to ILTA 2017 Virtual Encore Gwabbit Big Data Power Lunch with our special guest, who everyone here is excited to hear from, Chris Fritsch from Clients First Consulting, CRM Success Consultant and founder. So it's wonderful to have so many people on the call today. This is an interactive webinar. We want you to be able to ask as many questions as you like, but we have a lot of attendees. So if you can please submit your questions via the chat window, we would appreciate it. We should have plenty of time for everyone's questions at the end. And at the end, we will also do the experiment of unmuting everybody's line so we can have an open discussion if you like. So I'm very excited about this. We presented this Big Data Power Lunch at ILTA this year, just a month or so ago, and it was a big hit. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I think it was a big hit. So let's move on here. So we really talked about big data problems and big data solutions. The original idea of the Big Data Power Lunch honestly came from our client successes. My job at Gwabbit is to work extensively with clients, helping them to find new solutions to their CRM relationship problems. And that's why people come to Gwabbit is because they have data problems. They have bad data and they need to figure a way of cleaning it up. But over time, I work with these clients. We have a lot of them now. And I hear about their progress, about how they clean up their databases and they utilize their big data for ERM and relationships. And there were several of our clients who had kind of amazing stories. And I was so impressed by them that we asked them if they would share their success with our Gwabbit audience at ILTA. So that's the core of why this is. So we assembled this kind of dream team at ILTA. And we had Helen Rizzo, Marketing Technology Administrator at Allen Matkins, who talked about how she's managed to increase engagement with attorneys and clients with events 20% by harvesting relationships. And Chris Mann, CRM Manager at McGuire Woods, talked about restoring confidence in his CRM and ERM through a concentrated effort at data cleansing and then relationship reporting. Jesse McNeil, Marketing Information Technologist at Holland and Hart, talked about the rewards of presenting great data visually. He is a master at finding ways of presenting data that are meaningful to attorneys. So we had all of these people with these great success stories, but we needed somebody to, with an amount of experience with data and clients, and we wanted to get somebody in there, and so we asked Chris Fritsch to join us, to give us the overall picture of how bad data harms us and has a cost, and then talk about good data and how we can change that. So basically, we had this in an hour session at ILTA, and then we decided, well, let's actually break it down and let each of our presenters give a little more detail. So now we have Chris today. On October 11th, we have Helen Rizzo, the 18th, Chris Mann, and the 25th, Jesse McNeil. So you get the benefit of these wonderful, they have amazing stories, and they'll have a chance to talk about them in detail on these webinars. So we're really excited about that. We're also going to be offering case studies for each of our guests, and Chris has also, she's offered to give us some contact management 101, which we will send at the end of the webinar as well. So I just wanted to talk about for a second, and this is just the briefest of introductions to Gwabbit. For those of you, we have clients on the line, and we also have people who may have never seen Gwabbit. We'd always love to give you a demo, but I just wanted to talk briefly about what it is. So we have basically high quality, current actionable data is our business. That's what we do. Data quality management and enterprise relationship management. So I want to give you just a little overview of what makes gwabbit different and why it's kind of extraordinary. It starts with the email, with scraping an email signature. So we find that email signatures are the most current actionable data. We know when they came in today. So what gwabbit does is it harvests that information and it creates a new contact or an update, and it also tracks the relationship. So what happens then is we compare it with LinkedIn for more accuracy, and then we send it over to your CRM, updating the data or adding in contacts that has been missing. We estimate that 40 to 50% of contacts are missing because attorneys don't add that information to the CRM. And then we also track the relationships. So, and we can send the relationships to the CRM as well. Now, we also have another module. Oh, I forgot to mention that we have reporting. So more and more, we realize that reporting is becoming crucial for marketing departments and BD teams to be able to improve business development. So every day we're improving our reports. We have new reports coming out in 3 weeks that will give data stewards and marketing people and business development people more and more tools to be able to show this great information to attorneys. We also have a client-facing module, which is gwabbit Outlook. So we currently have actually a whole array of modules. We have data quality management, CRM, which we've just added a trend line report, which is amazing to track basically return on investment on events. It's a whole thing. You can track how the relationship is going with your clients. We have gwabbit Outlook on the attorney-facing side, and we've just announced alerts, which is a way of alerting the attorney once a week or once a month on which new contacts and updated contacts have come in for them, so they can immediately add them to their address books. And then we also, just now, we're showing sneak peeks of List Manager, which is putting it all together in a way that you can really send your marketing emails, et cetera, to really high quality contacts. So we've discovered a way to increase ROI on those communications through only sending them to high quality contacts. So this is just a little overview of gwabbit and where we are now. We've come a long way in 10 years, and we're always happy to give you a demo. So I want to get back to the task at hand here, which is the cost of big, bad data. And in order to facilitate this, I'm going to introduce Chris Fritsch. Now, I've known Chris for 10 years, and she helped me when I was on the client side, when I was in a marketing department doing BD. And Chris works together with leading professional services firms across the country to help support their CRM and client intelligence efforts and maximize their return on investment. But it's not just Chris, it's actually Clients First Consulting, and they are celebrating their 10-year anniversary this year. Chris has a team of 100 professionals working with hundreds of top firms. So they really know what they're doing, and they've been doing this a long time, particularly on data issues, right? So they have free sessions, discovery sessions. They send out a CRM success list, data quality tips each week. They have amazing services, and we're really happy to be collaborating with Chris with a number of clients. So we really appreciate her. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Chris Fritsch, who's going to talk about big bad data. So Chris, I am going to unshare my screen, and I'm going to pass the baton to you. One second.
There's the baton.
There it is.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. Let me get all the desktop stuff out of the way. And let me know when you can see the big screen.
We can.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, great.
Yep.
Terrific. All right, well, we of course, I get to be the bearer of bad news and talk about big data problems, but I'm actually going to sneak a few solutions in there as well. I hope that's okay, Richard.
Absolutely. Let's do
yep.
it.
So, but let's jump in and look at sort of the enormity of the problem. Big data is a big mess. We're seeing, all of these different reports of the growth of data over time and how, the amount of data that we produced over decades, we're now producing annually. But I think it's important to understand from a corporate perspective, 40% of that data is growing in companies and in law firms each year, and it's becoming quite a mess. So a report by Gartner found that 27% of data in the world's top companies is flawed, and flawed can mean a lot of different things. But that has a direct impact on the bottom line for 88% or more of all U.S. companies. And in fact, 25 to 30% of all of our data becomes inaccurate or dated data every year, which leads to a lot of these problems. And what does this mean? A lot of different sources have quoted, how much bad data we have, how much it costs, what the implications are. Thousands and thousands and millions, in fact, of dollars wasted by many companies just because of big bad data. It could be $6 billion from one estimate, 12% of a company's revenue, but the whole U.S. economy, trillions of dollars a year on bad data. And in fact, I loved this particular article. Bad data has bankrupted major companies, started wars, and caused entire civilizations to disappear. There's actually an online Utopia article about all of the implications back to even Christopher Columbus not finding the new world as he thought it would be because he had some bad data. So, well, now we've got bad data and we've got big data, but again, it's not a new problem. And, here's some of the reasons. 40% of email users change their email address. We all start new Gmail accounts. I know people who have had 5 and 10 email accounts. 20% of people move, they change jobs, they get married and divorced and promoted, and they retire, and some people die. But look at all the different changes of titles, of headquarters of company. One company changes headquarters and operations, and tens of thousands of individuals can be affected by this. And we have to keep up with this, especially within a law firm, because in a law firm, our relationships are like gold. They are the most important asset that we have. And in fact, there's a very large, actually not so large, but very prestigious firm in New York that consistently has pretty much the highest profits per partner. And I asked their CRM manager, we always wonder, about the workings of the firm. How many data stewards do you have? And she said, 10. I said, 10? You don't even have, you don't have a huge number of attorneys. Why would you have 10 data stewards? And her comment was, at our firm, we have quantified the value of a relationship is $2.8 million. So whatever it takes to keep our data pristine, we do it. Now, that isn't to say that anybody needs 10 data stewards. I think the story just illustrates that, people that understand the value of relationships invest in data stewarding. And in reality, you don't need a ton of data stewards. And with some of the technology that's available now, you need even fewer. And we'll talk about some of that.
Now, Chris, you actually outsource data stewards, correct?
Yeah, we actually have a team. A lot of firms are taking that particular role outside of the law firm, just because, like many operations, it doesn't necessarily make sense to be housing data stewards in very expensive office space in large, in New York and Chicago and San Francisco and some other places. And then you have to manage and train and supervise those people, and there tends to be a revolving door because as many of us would say, it can be a very painful job. And so our goal was to find people who actually like to do that job. And we've done a pretty good job of doing that and taking it off the hands of the law firm so they can focus on more strategic activities.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah. So what does this mean for us? That's all well and good, but for law firms, how is all of this big, bad, messy data affecting us? Well, I had a conversation with a firm in Pennsylvania, and I said, let's say you do an event, and actually I had a firm that did an event. They invited 2,000 people to the event, figuring they'd get 200. They had a whole lot of attorneys there, mixing and mingling, and 20 people show up. And forget the fact that they spent a lot of money on the event. It was more the embarrassment factor. And so I tell this story to a managing partner, and he said, yeah, forget about that. If you think about the cumulative time that we spend writing and speaking and doing presentations, if we can't get our communications, our e-alerts, and all of our information out to our target audiences, that waste of billable time is so much more. And I tend to agree with him. He's absolutely right. And then we've got, the embarrassment factor of how many duplicative communications do we send? Not so much mail anymore, but that's obvious. I've multiple times have gotten 6 and 7 things addressed to different people. They're all delivered to my address, and that costs real money in mailings. But we don't do that many mailings anymore. Although I did work with a firm that the reason they had to have CRM was they had bad mailing lists, and the way they found out was they did a really expensive concert tickets for some of their best clients, and they mailed them out to a bad list, and they mailed them out at the last minute, and over 50% of them came back as undeliverable. Those concert tickets are not replaceable, nor were the relationships, and suddenly CRM is tremendously important when we see the actual cost of this bad data. We can't cross-sell. We don't know who has the relationship with the individuals. It's very important to understand who knows who in a law firm, and without it, we can't cross-sell. You already talked about postal mail. And then just the amount of time that we spend cleaning data because we allow bad data to come into the system. So if we can get some preventative maintenance in advance, it's extremely beneficial and saves us time and dollars. And then, of course, uncoordinated marketing and BD efforts. I could talk all day. I have stories about this. But just recently, a firm said, we absolutely have to have CRM. One of our groups of lawyers was going to pitch a client, and on the way in the door in the parking lot, ran into another group of our lawyers coming out to their car. You can't make this stuff up. I had a firm we worked with that said to their CRM provider, we've got to have CRM right now. And the provider said, well, great, obviously, but we've been talking about this for at least 4 years. Why now? And the marketing professional said, well, our Pennsylvania office just responded to an RFP, and so did our Florida office, but with different rates. And these are the kinds of things that absolutely require you to have good data in the system. And again, you can't make really smart decisions without good data. What market should we target? Where are most of our clients? Are revenues up or down with certain clients? And we've got to have the data and the reports and the analytics so that we can make the right decisions about how to allocate our limited resources. And in a law firm, this is all compounded, right? Because as an attorney, I know this. If the data is bad, therefore the system is bad. Therefore, I'm not using it. It's not going to happen. So if you want to get system adoption, you have to fix your data. Some of our biggest clients have called us for exactly that reason. We're trying to roll out CRM again because we didn't focus on data. We didn't focus on all of the important things, training and planning and communicating. But mostly the data is bad, and now we can't do a thing with it. We've got to fix that before we try to roll it out again because we can't have the attorneys seeing how bad it is. And all this ultimately leads to frustration. I've heard so many times, why is it that we can't do a simple thing like a list in this law firm? It's simple. Why can't we do it? Well, they don't necessarily understand that CRM in a law firm is not necessarily a simple thing. In a corporation, there's a CRM system, and when you join, you get access to it, and you get a password, and you get to have access to your contacts in the system or all of the contacts in the system. But in a law firm, it's inside out. The contacts come in with the individuals who join the firm, and they have to all be brought into the same CRM system, and hey, we know the same people. So those contacts have got to be deduplicated, but guess what? 30% of our data goes bad, so a lot of the time that data doesn't match up. So there's got to be a lot of research to find out what's the right data and what's dated data. You know, I have attorneys who say to me, yeah, I've got 2,000 contacts, but I don't know half of them. You know, these are not our recent contacts. It's just a giant pool of bad data. And so in a law firm, all of that data comes together, and it makes a big mess. Okay, so this is caused by a lot of people and process issues. So I'm a big believer in saying, you know, when it comes to technology, CRM can be challenging. That's true. Gartner likes to say that 70+% of CRM implementations fail to meet expectations. But what they don't tell you is the expectations are wrong. It's not the technology, it's the people and process issues. So you have to really focus on that. Most firms don't have a formalized style. If you're trying to do a search to send out information to C-level executives, and people are entering Chief Executive Officer, CEO, C period, E period, O period, all these inconsistencies, it's impossible to get a good list. There's no standardization. There are no official firm standards. Oftentimes, firms don't focus on data quality, especially the staffing. You know, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of training and resource dedication to keep up with this. But it's important. You know, companies all over the world and law firms and other organizations have to really understand big corporations spend millions and millions of dollars independently and billions of dollars collectively on data quality. So it's really important, even more so in law firms, because of the importance of our relationships. And there has to be, there can't be a lack of communication. There has to be communication. And all of this has to be ongoing. I talked to a client a few weeks ago, you know, who said, okay, Chris, if we start working on this and we get everything selected and implemented in our CRM system and we start to roll out in January, when will we be done? And I said, you're not going to like my answer. The answer is never, because CRM is never done. Data quality is never done. 30% degrades each year, so you have to get it to a good position, and then you have to maintain it as well. Super important. And you have to dedicate the resources to it as well. You have to have the staff involvement. All right, so I like to, when I work with clients or, you know, if we're at a conference, you know, just for fun, I'll go to a cocktail party, people have a few drinks, and I'll ask them, so tell me, you know, what kind of challenges with CRM or data quality are you running into at your firm? So we've got the old, hey, our attorneys don't want to share. Well, I don't hear that as much anymore. You hear it at each firm a little, but nowhere near as much as you did, because frankly, with the economy that we're in right now, if you're not sharing and you're not collaborating and you're not talking to each other, the prospects for your firm are not great, certainly not as good as for firms that have learned to collaborate. What I'm seeing more, and now that's even more challenging, is I don't keep Outlook contacts. So I just trained 150 attorneys at a very large firm, and a good percentage of them, okay, some of them younger attorneys, granted, associates, didn't have, I said, okay, go to your Outlook contacts. And I got this blank stare. It's like, can you show me where that is? And I'm not kidding. More and more attorneys are not keeping their contacts in Outlook. This was a partner in Silicon Valley, a major partner at a major law firm, said to me, yeah, I don't keep contacts in my Outlook. And I said, so what do you do when you want to email somebody or get their contact info? He said, I go and I use the search feature. I find the last email, and I either get the info off their signature block or I click reply if I want to send them something. More and more, that's the challenge now. We definitely have seen issues with people doing integrations. So I'm a big believer in if your desire is to integrate, the first question I ask is why? Tell me why. And if you can articulate a reason that you want to bring in the time and billing data, which, oh my God, makes the CRM data look pristine. I had a firm, they integrated with time and billing, and they wanted their IT department to do it. They didn't want the CRM provider to help, and they really didn't quite understand the process. And they brought over 200,000 bad duplicative records into their system, and nobody knew it had happened until it shut down the firm's email servers. That firm turned the CRM system off. I had this one yesterday. Our secretaries, they just really don't want to do this. So why can't we just have a data steward do it, or can we find some automated software to do it? There's that whole issue of non-compliant assistants. And then I love this one. Well, our biggest problem is we just imported a bunch of crap into our database, or even this one from a smart managing partner. I don't care what you do with the CRM system, but don't piss off my secretaries, because they are what lives or dies in terms of technology is whether the secretaries will adopt it. All right. One of the things we talked about so far was the data migration and conversion, which occasionally, that does account for some problems. But for the most part, it's not the technology that causes the problem. I had another very smart managing partner say to me, working in a law firm is like herding cats. And I said, actually, it's a little different than that. It's like herding very smart cats with opposable thumbs. So if you look at all of the other issues that we have, data entry by people, mixed entries by users because they don't have the right standards, they're putting in chief or CEO, they're not trained on how to enter things, they don't have a communication about why it's important to keep their contacts in the right places, they are all managing their contacts in different places. Everything else is because of the really smart cats with the opposable thumb, right? And they're using those thumbs to put that data in a variety of places. So back in the past, when we did contact management, we've come a long way with our data. Okay, so when I started, there actually were still Rolodexes. Couple years, I haven't seen one in a couple years. I know there are probably a few out there, but I think we've gotten past the Rolodex for contact management. Still got spreadsheets out there. Had a firm I worked with yesterday. They have a CRM system. They got frustrated with it, and everybody's got their own spreadsheet. I'm surprised at the number of firms that have a CRM system, invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in it, and there are still spreadsheets. I'd venture a guess it's 90+% of firms. If you look at business development tracking, if you look at special lists for groups and departments, we do a lot still with spreadsheets. Okay, I think we've probably killed off the last BlackBerry, but all of this sort of moved and evolved into Outlook. And that was the de facto standard. We keep our contacts in Outlook. We always have, we always did, but it looks like it's not one of those we always will, because now people are looking at all kinds of different places to manage their contacts. Oops. So I have a lot of attorneys who go, I use LinkedIn. That's my Outlook now. Why not? If you're at a conference and you meet somebody, you can go connect with them and have all their information at your fingertips without typing anything in. You don't have to do a thing at all, and you can see a lot more information than you can by just typing their business card in. And a lot of us as business development trainers say that. You should absolutely connect with people on LinkedIn right away. So we need to figure out, how do we get that data? Then we've got that attorney who said, I go to my email and I hit search. Search has become ubiquitous. We can get any piece of information that we want through a search now. So why take the time to type things into fields in the address book. People are keeping contacts in Gmail, in Yahoo, in iCloud, all through their mobile devices. In fact, the firm that I worked with where we trained a lot of the attorneys, the marketing professional said to me, marketing technology manager said to me, I would like you to write an article so that we can start training our associates on proper contact management. Because when they come in, that's usually not part of the curriculum. And they need to understand not just how to do it, but why should they care? Why is it important? So if this is a challenge that faces your firm, I actually wrote an article for her. It's basically called Contact Management 101, but it talks about a lot of these challenges and ways that you can get associates, new lawyers, or anybody who's not keeping contacts centrally to start putting those contacts in Outlook. And some of that they can do manually, but wouldn't it be great if they could also do it in a more automated manner? We'll talk a little bit about that. So there are a lot of ways. I said we're going to talk about problems, but even more, we're going to talk about some solutions. And we have another 3 esteemed panelists who are going to talk about some of the really interesting and innovative solutions that they came up with. But based on my experience in working with probably 150 firms on data issues, here are some of the best practices that I've seen that can really, really work. Focus first on people and process. So get secretaries and assistants to play a more active role. There was a firm where the secretaries really controlled the technology, and the firm was growing and merging, and it was becoming a huge bottleneck. And they said, enough. We're growing right now. Our ratio is way too low. We need to get our ratio up to 4 or 5 to 1 instead of 2 to 1. And frankly, the way we're going to do it is people are now going to be certified in their job functions. And if they don't want to pass a certification on CRM and they don't want to actively work on contacts for attorneys, that's fine, but that is part of the new role. And, a lot of the secretaries ended up, taking packages and leaving, but most of them stayed and learned this new critical skill, because maybe you can't get the very smart cats with the opposable thumbs to do contact management. You definitely can get the assistants to do it. It can be challenging, but you can absolutely do it. Create certifications for them. Tie it to compensation and evaluations. Get their participation. It's absolutely essential. And you can occasionally get the attorneys. Some firms tie reimbursement for marketing expenses to putting contacts in the system. But I think we also, at this point, when I started working with CRM systems years ago, I entered all my own contacts, and I thought, contacts are so important to us. Our relationships, as a lawyer and a consultant, my relationships are tremendously important as well. I managed my own contacts. At a certain point, I got so busy that I realized that if I couldn't delegate or automate some of this, I couldn't do the job right. And frankly, if you have an attorney who's billing $500 to $1,500 an hour, I'll tell you that, frankly, having them enter data into the system manually may not be the highest and best use of their time. But sometimes firms do want to get them to at least have an active role in list and event management. So they'll say, if your contacts aren't in the system, we understand, but they can't receive marketing communication. They can't receive invitations. And then again, you can train the associates on why this is important. I had another smart managing partner at a firm in Chicago who said, I get it. Bob and Linda are never going to participate. We're going to grab their contacts, but they're never going to do this, and we're not going to convince them. In the whole firm, there's just these 2 people. All right. He said, but I tell you what we are going to do. Every associate in this firm is going to be on this CRM system, because in 6 to 8 years, we won't have this problem anymore. It'll just be part of our DNA. So start on the associates when they come in. The most important thing to get them to understand the value of the CRM and the value of the data is to educate them. As I said, CRM never ends. Data quality never ends. But look at that as a good thing. That means you've got all the time in the world to get better at this. Start communicating the value. You have new associates joining, new offices coming on, new laterals joining the firm. Communicate the value and the benefits to those groups. Use your data, use your reports, get successes, communicate those successes. I've seen it work. Firms will have one group that they focus on getting it right and finding a problem that they can fix. And once they've done this, the next group is knocking at the door going, why do they have access to the CRM and we don't have access to it? And that can be a pretty good problem to have. So those are the people and process issues and solutions. But I think now, more and more important, technology as an enabler is going to make us much better at this as people stop keeping their contacts in their Outlook address books, and they're managing them in LinkedIn, they're managing them in their iCloud accounts and every place else. I've started to believe that technology is a core feature that we have to start utilizing. And technology is not mutually exclusive with data stewarding. It's actually an enabler. So there are lots of different ways. There's no magic bullet for data quality, but there are lots of options. So, there are external data cleaning services now that will quote you, hey, we can get your data pristine. We've looked at a lot of these services, and they get your data to about 75%. I'm talking about these companies who you buy lists of data from, and they crowdsource the information, and and I'm sorry, I'm not sure about me, but you tell me when 75% accuracy was ever good enough for an attorney in your law firm. I can tell you one statistic: attorneys are right 100% of the time, whether they are or not. And if your data is bad, they are not going to use that system. So we'd like to think that we could just get this list company to populate all of our information, but it just doesn't work. But there are tools that can help us. Gwabbit is an excellent example. Tools that now capture the information from a signature block in an email. So I may not put things into my Outlook address book, but I am darn sure going back and forth with email all day long. I live in it 12 plus hours a day. And any of those that have an email signature block, that's probably the correct data. If I sent it to you last week, it's probably got my correct information. And you can use this data. Again, it's not mutually exclusive with the data stewarding. You've got data stewards who can actually be more efficient, more effective, and more accurate when they've got data at their fingertips and they don't have to go do the research. When we validate data, our team searches LinkedIn, they search the websites, they search everywhere. They have all these different research options. But if you can have a signature block right at your fingertips, that is perceived good data. And it doesn't just store the contacts. You can create new contacts as well, and then import them back into the address books to fix that problem of people not keeping those contacts in their address book. You can also use it to validate the contacts that you already have.
Chris, I just wanted to add to that, just in terms of the way some clients are using Gwabbit these days. They're also through our ERM solution. You can see metadata without signature blocks. So you're actually capturing through domain. You're capturing the company and the first and last name of the contact. And we're even having people get that data now from Gwabbit. Just a note.
Absolutely. We're going to end in a little bit with a few sort of final best practices and takeaways, but Richard and I both thought it would be interesting to see if we could maybe open it up and unmute and see if people want to ask any actual questions. You can also, in the GoToMeeting chat box, you can type some questions in as well. And Richard, I'll let you moderate this. I don't know if you already had some questions that you wanted to start with, or if you want to just kind of toss it open for everybody. Richard, did I lose you?
You did. I was muted myself. I muted myself.
Don't you love it? I love technology when it works.
Yeah. So everyone, if you'd like, is there anyone with a question? I don't think nobody is muted at this moment, and you've all been incredibly quiet. So I appreciate that. That's amazing. But is there anyone with a particular question for Chris on big bad data or data problems, data solutions? I just had a quick question. So you talked a little bit about how automation and works with data stewarding. Do you think it's a combination of like, we're really going for good data, right? So I mean, our experience is that attorneys really don't add context to their Outlook, and they do go sort of dumpster diving. That's what we call it. And so do you think that it is a combination of education and people resources and automation? Is that sort of what you're saying, Chris?
I absolutely think that. I don't think like I said, there's not one magic bullet. It's a combination of resources that really can work together, capturing the contacts on the front end, validating them on the back end, putting eyes on them, because technology is never going to be 100%. It gets us to a certain point. Then we want that human relationship component as well. I think it's people, process, and technology working together that's the most effective solution.
So what would be a typical scenario of when, say, if there were data stewards and gwabbit were implemented, and so the data stewards, I mean, the typical flow would be something like gwabbit would come in, the data stewards would validate the gwabbit data. It would go into the CRM, and then the attorneys would be alerted, or with our new alert tool, or there would be Smart Connect to connect the good data, the new good data that's come in. Is that sort of what we're looking at too?
Yeah, I think it varies by system. People have a lot of different CRM systems.
Yes, they do.
There are new systems on the market right now which have what's called a one-way sync, and they're not syncing with Outlook the way that we used to think law firm CRM systems work. Well, the way they did work in the past. And so for those systems, it's absolutely essential, because you're not going to get contacts into, say, a Salesforce type system unless you have a tool like gwabbit, and because it's going to require some behavior change to get the attorneys to stop, using Outlook. But if you put a tool like gwabbit on it, it changes the entire equation, because you can finally get those contacts. And you've got the issue with the associates; they're just not keeping their contacts. But you have to train them why it's important. You can send them alerts, but you need to explain to them too why it's important for them to then save those contacts down into their Outlook so they can do list management in the future. I think it's like anything, it's not really difficult, but it is behavior change, and behavior change and busy people, whose time is money, literally. So I think if you want to, you have to, and a lot of it is tied to the value. Explain to them why this is important. Communicate, train and retrain. And
it makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier when you're starting with good data. When you have quality data, that your CRM system. By the way, we do sync with Dynamics, Salesforce, OnePlace, Contact Keys, and but when you have a good database, and attorneys. Chris Mann is going to talk about this in a couple of weeks. How there was absolutely no confidence in the CRM, and then when you use a little bit of automation and start transforming the data so that it's good, and then you prove to the attorneys that the data has improved, suddenly they will actually start using it and start contributing, and it makes it easier to sell that, much easier to sell that.
And as we are finally in legal focusing on business development, the accountants buy CRM to do pipeline tracking and always have. We're just starting to focus on this in legal. Talked to a firm yesterday that said, we bought this great tool to, to do opportunity and RFP and pitch tracking, and the marketing technology manager told her, we can't roll this out because our data is so bad. And they didn't really understand what that meant. You can't go in and say, okay, we have a potential opportunity with this company, and you go to link it to the company, and there are 700 iterations of that company. It just doesn't work. They had to stop the entire project. They've had a CRM system for 10 plus years. They have merged and acquired a bunch of new firms. Their data is just absolutely a mess. And now they're going to have to spend a minimum of probably 6 to 12 months on their data before they can implement the new technology. That's how important this is.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, once the confidence is there, then a lot can happen, but until it's hard, you can't implement these other things. We just had a request from just for a copy of this webinar, and I just wanted to let everybody know that it will be available via link on YouTube, so you'll be able to share it with colleagues if you like. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to pose, either via chat or live?
Well, let's wrap up, and we'll save some more time for questions at the end. Just a few final tips and takeaways. Okay, so assess your data quality situation right now. Just scope it out. Figure out, what does it look like. You know, I have more and more firms that I talk to that they know they have a problem. You know, I guess the first step is admitting you have a problem. But I want to know what the scope of the problem is. Sometimes it's not as bad as you think. You know, we worked with a client last week, and they said, okay, we have a few lists. We have 6,000 contacts. We're going to import them into a spreadsheet. We don't need addresses because it's just to do email marketing. So, all right, we need you to deduplicate them, make sure they have the correct titles, but there was no address cleaning or anything. What that project actually was 250 lists, 60,000 contacts, many, many dupes, missing company information that was required to be imported into the e-marketing tool. And they wanted it done, you know, by kind of the end of September, October. It's more like to get everything done that really needed to be done. It's more like a 6-month project. But we gave them recommendations. Look, you don't have to do all these things. Let's start with the things that are mission critical, the things that you have to do to effectively execute your marketing campaign, you know, and anything else can be phase 2. So scope out your problem. We're happy to do a free discovery session with anybody who has a data problem to talk with you a little bit about it. And then we even do data quality, full data quality assessments if you really want to know the cost and have a plan for your cleanup. That plan is essential. You know, there are firms that go, okay, I literally had someone call me and say, we have 60,000 records in our database and we'd like you to clean it up. How much will that cost? Well, just because you have 60,000 records in your database, that doesn't tell you anything. How many duplicates do you have? How many missing or bad emails or bounces do you have? You have to know that, and then you have to have a plan for the cost benefit. You don't want to do data quality with all of your data. You only want to do it, you know, where you're going to actually get a benefit from the efforts and the cost and the resources. Then you have to invest in those resources, internally, externally, secretaries, whoever you can get to focus on this. You have to invest the resources, the technology, the tools, and the people to do this right. And it has to be ongoing because CRM and that data will never end. So then once you know what you're trying to do, don't boil the ocean, right? Try to set a limited number of goals that are measurable, achievable, and agreed upon by the key stakeholders. You know, you don't need to get every piece of data clean. And I often will talk people down off the ledge. I'll say, listen, you're never going to get 100% participation in CRM, and you're never going to get 100% data quality. If tomorrow you cleaned up the last ticket or duplicate record, tomorrow and 2 minutes, you would have another one to clean up because 30% of the data continues to degrade. So look at it as a long-term goal, and you have lots of time to focus on it. I've seen firms succeed who have failed for years, and they finally put together a plan, and now they're able to succeed with CRM and get that adoption and get that business development and those marketing benefits. Most importantly, don't do it alone. Ask for help, folks in other law firms, people in LMA who are peers. They will tell you exactly what probably not to do, so you can learn from their mistakes. You know, we all, I think, have a very good sense of humor about CRM. And then, you know, your providers, the team at Gwabbit, consultants like us, we will take a phone call anytime. We'll sit down with you. We'll give you, you know, information, access to resources. We have a blog at crmsuccess.net, and I try to post and my team as well, we post every couple of weeks on data quality and CRM success tips. And I'll always get on the phone and share resources and ideas. And if you'd like to subscribe to that, happy to do that as well for anyone who'd like to receive those weekly tips. I mean, I think that's enough out of me. Let's see, do we have any more questions?
All right.
Something's coming in, Richard.
Yes, we did have somebody asked, does Gwabbit connect with Contact Manager, ILTA, Thomson Reuters? Can you run a search on Gwabbit that shows Gwabbit contacts that were not already in your CRM? Yes, everything Gwabbit is syncing with Dynamics, which is the Thomson Reuters product currently, and we're working with a firm right now.
Yeah, let's back up. What was the exact question related to Contact Manager? Those words?
Yes.
Because Contact Manager is no longer going to be supported. So I would say that's not the Dynamics platform. That's the custom-built one that preceded it. So I'll let you take it from there.
Right. Yes, you're absolutely right. So we can completely talk. We're working with a firm right now with Contact Manager, and we have a system that works with Contact Manager. So if you would like, we can certainly talk afterward. That was from Mary. And also Gwabbit, yes, you run a search in Gwabbit that shows Gwabbit contacts that are not already in the system. Yes, we divide out Gwabbit contacts by new contacts and updated contacts, and we let you know which ones they are. So you would be able to see that. So, but we can talk further on that. We're happy to sync with what you got and figure a way, even if Thomson doesn't support that product. So are there any other questions? I just want to thank you so much, Chris, for your experience, and I think this was extremely valuable, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to grab the screen here. I'm hoping.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Happy to help, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was. I actually have a bunch of notes I'd like to talk to you about later. So we are going to be going ahead and sending Chris's contact management 101,
yes.
CRM 101, and we'll send that along to all of our participants. So can y'all see my screen with Helen Rizzo? So I wanted to, next week, as part of our second week of our month of big data, we have Helen Rizzo, and it's interesting because it's going to jump off kind of where Chris left off from CRM, like integrating CRM and ERM. What Helen's done is she's used Gwabbit analytics of relationship and data quality to update sponsorship lists, increasing attorney engagement and client and prospect engagement by numbers of percentages. And what we're doing with Helen is we're actually going to take you step by step in her process. So you'll be able to see how she did it. She actually uses relationship scoring to update sponsorship lists and update email marketing lists. It's pretty incredible. It's awesome. So I hope you'll join us for that. And it will basically, just jump off right from where Chris left off. So I just wanted to thank you all for coming, and we will send you materials, and we will send you a link to this webinar if you'd like to send it to your colleagues. And if you'd like to speak about anything or would like a gwabbit demo, we'd love to show you the latest in our alerts, ARM 4.0, and our list manager. So thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you next week.